Eswaran from Malaysia. I head a corporate foundation called RYTHM, which stands for Raise Yourself to Help Mankind. And we focus on long-term social impact, community empowerment, and sustainability. I've been coming to WEF for the last 15 years, and what it has inspired is the conversations, because I believe we need to talk. We need to talk about matters that sometimes, we don't. And that's what inspires, and that's what this week has been about.
Great.
Hi, namaste. My name is Radhika Bharat Ram. I'm from India. I run two organizations. One's called the Shri Ram Schools, that's into education, and KARM for young Indian women, which actually enables young women to join the workforce in India. And what has inspired me this week is just the energy here. It's been amazing to meet some phenomenal women, and it's opened up my worldview. So I'm very inspired to meet some amazing women who are sitting in this panel. So yeah.
Sure. And I'm a social entrepreneur. And I think that what I've been hearing a lot about is collaboration and partnership, which I love. I'm passionate about that. And it's been nice to see that on a lot of the panels and see a lot of discussion about it. On storytelling, philanthropy, and social entrepreneurship. So just to kick off, I will be asking each of our wonderful panelists to introduce themselves and share one kind of key learning or highlight from Davos this week. I'll start with you, Karen.
Thanks. Well, we figured that out. Hi, I'm Karen Spencer, and I'm a social entrepreneur. And I think that what I've been hearing a lot about is collaboration and partnership, which I love, because I'm hugely passionate about that. It's been nice to see that on a lot of the panels and see a lot of discussion about it.
Hi, namaste. My name is Radhika Bharat Ram. I'm from India. I run two organizations. One's called the Shri Ram Schools, that's into education, and KARM for young Indian women, which actually enables young women to join the workforce in India. And what has inspired me this week is just the energy here. It's been amazing to meet some phenomenal women, and it's opened up my worldview. So I'm very inspired to meet some amazing women who are sitting in this panel. So yeah.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here. I'm Umayal Eswaran from Malaysia. I head a corporate foundation called RYTHM, which stands for Raise Yourself to Help Mankind. And we focus on long-term social impact, community empowerment, and sustainability. I've been coming to WEF for the last 15 years, and what it has inspired is the conversations, because I believe we need to talk. We need to talk about matters that sometimes, we don't. And that's what inspires, and that's what this week has been about.
Great. So just to kind of kick off the conversation, I'll come to you first, Karen. The kind of core focus of this panel is around sort of storytelling, and I'd like to get your thoughts on how can storytelling sort of amplify the effectiveness of philanthropy and social initiatives?
I think probably the mistake or the trick that we're missing is really brutal honesty in our failures. Because I think people will engage more with a really honest conversation about what it really means to make change. And I think we probably don't do enough of that, of really telling the journey, and it puts people off a little bit. Because if you can explain, it makes people less afraid to try, because they also realize that failing is part of the journey, and from that failure comes huge lessons, and that's the story that I think is much more interesting to tell. I think in philanthropy, sometimes we like to rah, and we're always trying to tell the good side. But if we're brave enough to really expose what's been hard, I think we actually engage with people in a much deeper way and get people who might be on the periphery looking in to engage in a deeper way.
I'm a great believer of storytelling. From the work that I do with girls who come from underserved community, I think it shows them that this is possible. And real stories really move them. It shows them the possibilities. It shows them that it's not out of their reach, because that's what you're usually told. And that it helps you in discovering who you truly are. And unfortunately, we don't do so much of storytelling, especially for women. And while we amplify voices of people like me, but we are very far away from their reality, right? And I think storytelling from communities where they come from it can transform a young woman phenomenally. So amplifying their voices. So hopefully, maybe next year, instead of Radhika Bharat Ram sitting here, there should be a KARM fellow sitting here talking about her story. So I think that is the power of stories.
That's a great thought.
I think storytelling, because I've been doing this work for 20 years, and I realized today that storytelling is it kind of is what makes us believe that what we are doing, it's truly something that that's need to be done at the ground level for these people. And as what Karen said, I think we need to respect their struggles and where they come from. And storytelling is not about how good it looks, but how realistic it is, on the ground. And end of the day, when you talk about statistics, it is the true human story, that people relate to, that each and every one of us, when we go out there and you have a conversation with these people, and we don't tell them, we don't become their voice, as Radhika said, right? And we enable them to amplify their own voice. And that is the true storytelling.
And I think this kind of connects quite nicely to my next question, which is around sort of legacy and how is the idea, I'll come to you first, of legacy kind of changing for today's sort of business and family leaders?
So I'll talk about India. And I think legacy was all about creating institutions, and they need to be really big, and everything needs to be focused on me. I see the next generation thinking very differently. Whether it's through their work, it's about purpose. Like Masoom said, like performance with purpose is the way the next gen is thinking of. And I would assume, and at least for me personally, legacy means that did I leave this world a little better in my lifetime? Did I impact or improve lives of people, or enabled their life through my work, whether it's in my school when I work with the educators, and they are all women in India, right? Did I make it easier for them? And I think impact for me would be the legacy. And I think the next gen is really very, very conscious of that.
Karen, same question to you.
Yeah, I think legacy is a tricky question, because I think that we're learning more and more that the most change is going to happen when people aren't considering who's going to get credit for it. And that's the complicated bit, right? And so I'm hoping we're starting to see a shift in philanthropy away from legacy, in a way, really recognizing that lasting systemic change is going to happen when we forget about attribution and owning the change and legacy, and when we really work collectively and just everybody dig in. So I think it's a complicated question, And I think what I would like to see philanthropists, leading on is letting go of the ownership piece. I think that's where real leadership in philanthropy needs to come from now. Is much somebody else on another panel talking about trust-based philanthropy, letting go of control, letting go of credit, and those are the ways in which we now know. I mean, there are academics who study this, and the data is really clear that real systemic change happens under certain factors. And as philanthropists, if we say, if you say you care about impact and sustainability, then you really do need to look at the data and shift, which requires a huge amount of humility and acknowledging that you don't have the answers and working collaboratively with the nonprofit sector, giving in a way that is going to enable systems change work, which means multi-year, not project-based, less focused on outcomes and more really in partnership and on a journey with your grantees. So at Catalyst Now, which is the organization that I'm one of the co-chairs of, we've spent a lot of time working on this, and there's a huge body of work, and there's actually a donor learning group. So the Gates Foundation, the Skull Foundation, a lot of other big foundations get together monthly to discuss how can we be more systems thinking and actually making change. So if anybody's interested in joining the donor learning group, anybody can join. It's 15 to 20 people who get together with a bit of teaching every month and an opportunity to meet like-minded philanthropists who are trying to make change and trying to be thoughtful about working systemically.
And I mean, you've been doing this for 2 decades, so.
Well, the landscape has really truly changed, okay? Today, I mean, what we did 20 years ago and what we do today, we had to unlearn and we had to relearn, how to do philanthropy. So for me, philanthropy is not about going into a community and telling people what to do. That's the first thing we have to understand. Because you go in there and you respect their space. You respect their value, you respect their culture, and then you say, I'm here to walk along with you and to do what is necessary that I have to do to help them. So it's a partnership. So this has to be a mind shift from charity to collaboration, So so we have to understand legacy for corporations is not about how much money you spent, but how many communities you have truly empowered. So for me, it is about dignity-led, community-rooted impact. So I have to come to a point where the community is independent and tell me, we don't need you anymore. So that's true legacy.
Yeah, and I mean, there is, I guess, a need or a desire for the kind of institutions involved to demonstrate kind of responsible leadership. Radhika, I'll come back to you. What role do you think that corporate, educational, social institutions are playing in kind of responsible leadership?
I can just speak for my organization in education and being responsible. I think making sure that leadership and the empathy in leadership is inculcated in youngsters and, as a part of foundation of education will actually help in building the nation, right? And I think even with the work that I do with young women, values and making sure that the can-do-ness is part of what we do is about really enabling them to really enter the world of work. And like even with institutions, how we're looking at institutions, it is about collaboration. Even if you look at our corporates, right? Even with the CSR mandate, It is all about, am I just running an industry, or am I working with the community around me to make it better, right? And I think that sense of responsibility with capital is what is very, very, very important. I think, and there is a shift in India for that, right? Because we have the CSR mandate, which makes it's called the corporate social responsibility, that every organization needs to pitch in. The industry is playing a very important role, but if we want to amplify and make lives better, I think the role of government is critical. Because the impact that the government can have, philanthropists have a very small impact, right? So we also need to collaborate with the government to make our programs scalable, reachable, and sustainable. And I think that's where the role of philanthropy is so critical. The role of voice is so critical. And we can be an amazing bridge between the government and the people. So institutions, government, and people, I would say, yeah.
First thing about the leaders of the corporate world has to understand that profit and purpose are not enemies, okay? Because I come from a corporate foundation, okay? So the shift of trying to make your board understand the money you're spending, because they would think, okay, this money can be well spent on a PR exercise rather than spending on a community, because that's a shift that you have to work on. In order to do that, I truly have to believe in my work and what I do with the community, right? So that you can have that shift in the corporation. And the other thing is for corporate leaders to not to be arrogant, and for us not to be arrogant, to say that I know the community, I know how things work, right? You need to be humble enough, because these communities, they are resilient, okay? They know what they need to do. They need enablers like us to go in there and work hand in hand with them, so that the impact and the change and the transformation can truly happen. And we as leaders must have the courage, right, truly, to fight the broken system, to make sure that the governments, right, you fight the good fight, so that good governance come in. Like Radhika said, we cannot do it by ourselves. You need the governance, you need the support of governments. So private sector and government has to work in hand for us to see the greater good. So it's humility, it's courage, it's for us to believe that what we are doing is for a greater good. That's important.
Right.
I don't know that I have a lot to add to this, but I think it's exactly what you said. It's about government. I couldn't agree more. I mean, at the end of the day, if you don't engage with the government, you just can't get to scale. But you actually have to have that mindset from the beginning. So if you are confused enough to think that you can do this by yourself, then you waste a lot of time and energy. And it's a different mindset when your goal is actually scale. You're coming at the problem entirely differently. And that's where community can really help, because again, if you're on your first effort, engage with people who have been doing it for 2 decades, right? And there's so much to learn in that community of philanthropists, so that you don't make the same mistakes everybody else has made again and again. That's just silly money spent.
Absolutely. It's true. Are there any kind of examples that you could think of something that went wrong where you had some key learnings from that?
Oh my God. Yeah, many. But I will say this. I think that I would not give up, our biggest, at Whole Child International, which is the first charity that I started in 2004, our best program development happened when we fell hardest on our face. I mean, when we fell hard, like sort of crushingly hard, and we had the courage not to sweep that learning under the carpet and pretend it didn't happen, but really sit down and go, okay, what was the underlying thinking that got us in this problem, right? that's when the really big ahas happen. And I think if we can be brave and share those, then we save other people making those same mistakes. But again, it goes back to that failure piece, and being brave enough to really to fail and to acknowledge it and learn from it and share those failures with the community.
Yeah, and just on the aha moment, with the work that we do, I think we get very few aha moments, and they're like real highs, and there's so many of those low moments, and it's like we were talking, both of us, and we were saying that the work that we do is very difficult work because it is behavioral change. And there is this whole concept where there's so much focus on just numbers that we forget that these are human beings, these are lives, and it requires a lot of patience. It requires a lot of time. It requires breaking down systems and making sure that broken systems eventually build up for the better. And so the ahas.
And that takes time.
Oh my God, it takes a lot of time.
It's decades.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we have a program in Malaysia because so we are in the aha moments, right? So it's taken me. I thought in 1 year I can take this where we started from empowering and working with girls. Started with home for 10 girls, and 15 years later I'm at the schools, and it's about 10,000 girls now. And I'm now lobbying with the government to take actually the curriculum, which is putting it in the government. So we call it Maharani Going National. So as part of the national schools. And I realized it's the struggle of 15 years. And you think, I was thinking that in 1 year you can do, because we have to understand, like what Karen and Radha said, we are working with humans, not AI. So we are the most complicated, difficult creatures in the planet. So it's as fulfilling as can be frustrating. You can be down there in the hole, and sometimes you don't want to come out because it takes us there. But the thing is, it is so fulfilling when you see one life change. You just want to pick up and come, and you say, no, I'm doing this. I'm going to keep doing, and I'm going to keep changing every life possible because I was given the opportunity, and I'm going to go out there and do it. So these are moments.
That's great. And just to stay with you, given those challenges, it would be great just to get a sense from you. What do you think are the kind of key leadership qualities that are kind of required to be able to have that sort of impact and really drive that kind of community-led sort of impact?
First, you truly have to be passionate, and you have to believe in what you do. Because this is not a PR exercise. This is not something you do and you get this credit and you walk away and say, I've done it. This is not going to end. My job is not going to end tomorrow. Because issues are cropping up all the time with youth, with girls, or you're looking at children today. You look at the special needs spectrum today. It needs a total relook. Every government and organization is looking at education, higher education. How much are we truly looking at special education? And if you look at the statistics today, it is very scary to look at because it just keeps growing. Statistically, where children are born with, special needs and things that we don't even understand that what the psychologists and the doctors are saying today. So we need people who truly believe in what we are doing and be passionate about it and not giving up. That's the kind of people that we need today in this industry.
Radhika, just to come back to you. So you're an active member of Giving Pi, which is an initiative by Dasra. How do you personally contribute to the Giving Pi philosophy? And what's this journey taught you about intentional and structured giving?
So the Giving Pi is an organization under Dasra where almost 400 or 300 philanthropists under one roof. I think the journey has been phenomenal because, this work that we do sometimes gets very lonely. And so there is a space where one can share, collaborate, so that we're not reinventing the wheel. I think for me, the biggest part of being an ambassador of Giving Pi has been encouraging others to join the movement of giving. I think philanthropy doesn't mean just giving your money. I think what we need to do is give our time. I'm a great advocate of social work, and that's how my journey started off. It started off with working with the craft sector and the visually impaired, and it just opened up my heart and my ability to give. And I think the best thing that we can do is use our voice to enable others to give. And you don't have to give a lot of money, but you just need to start somewhere. And the world needs to see that. So, yeah.
That actually leads quite nicely into my next question for you, Karen. So beyond kind of transactional giving, how can leaders ensure that that they are actually kind of implementing strategic impact that lasts through their philanthropy?
Well, I think it's about really thinking systemically as a start, and most philanthropy is not systemic thinking. Band-aids are really appealing because you can count them, it's very fixed, and Band-aid solutions to problems are easily attributable, it's all those things, right? But if we're really looking for systemic, real change that is going to last, then we have to look at the system. And that requires a lot more thought and effort than just individual solutions. And it's back to things like I was saying about really committing to long-term funding and finding partners to go on a journey with as opposed to little giving. I mean, if you think about the for-profit sector, and you compare it to the nonprofit sector, imagine a business that only knew if it would exist for a year at a time. I mean, what business could get funding for a year? And we've got all the staff and we don't know, past a year if you're going to continue to fund us. No for-profit business would be expected to operate like that. And I think we need to start to apply a lot of those for-profit principles in terms of how we think about philanthropy. And because otherwise we're just, we're spending money on things that, and Band-Aids are necessary. There's a time and a place for an immediate solution that is not systemic. We all know that. But I think as a philanthropist, if you can at least be looking at a certain percentage of, if you haven't been really systems thinking, maybe just start with a certain percentage of your giving and say, you know what, for 10% we're gonna really try and think differently, not overvamp the whole thing, and just see what happens and compare over time. And you can bring your board on, educate your board in that way. But there are tools out there for people who are interested in looking at the way that they are giving, because we just don't have enough resources for Band-Aid solutions. We really do need to be looking systemically.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I think we're sort of coming to time now, so I'll just ask one final quick fire question for each of you. What shifts do each of you think are needed for philanthropy to move from charity to long-term systemic impact?
Okay. We're also talking about impact as influence, right? And I agree that it is about influencing mindset change, right? And shifting systems and inspire action. So we need to also shift from, looking at philanthropy as something you donate from one time, and you're looking at, not as charity, but something that it's in a more systematic, organized way. How do you do charity? And also going from transaction to transformation, And it's not a short-term relief, but looking at it as a long-term social impact. So the change basically in mindset, and when we work with communities, we work from our minds and hearts. We are truly creating a movement and not a charity.
For me, moving away from charity, I don't know charity, I don't know philanthropy, and for me that means focusing on depth, making sure that you walk the path with your beneficiaries for as long as it takes, and for me that would be my girls. I would handhold them for as long as it takes for them to find that confidence and belief in them. And to really move away from thinking that I will just donate for, or I'm going to walk with you for a year. But instead of thinking like that, you walk with an organization for a long period of time. And for me, trust-based philanthropy is foundation of philanthropy. If you want to see systemic change, there is no other way than that. And also, I'm a great advocate of also saying that philanthropists need to fund organizations to do capacity building as well. Like any organization, you need to invest in the people who work there. So while I might run my own organization, I do support many other organizations which work at the grassroots. And my promise to them is that I will fund them for 5 years, but they need to focus on capacity building because they need to support the people who are supporting others. And I think most of the time, philanthropists don't look at that. And I think I would love to see that change happening, where we are funding organizations to build capacity, to recruit the greatest minds to work in this very, very complicated sector.
I think if there's one thing, it would just be more unrestricted funding, which is around the trust-based philanthropy model. So, and there's a significant amount of data. The Ford Foundation had an incredible experience with this, and a lot of funders are really nervous about this because it's letting go of control. Obviously, Mackenzie Scott has been an incredible example of that. And obviously it's complicated because, of course, the sector, when you think about it, the foundations, if everybody starts doing that kind of philanthropy, then all those jobs are going away, right? So it's a complicated power dynamic, I think, for the philanthropic sector, where you've got a lot of, push-pull here, and we kind of have to call that out a little bit. So if you look at the Gates Foundation versus Mackenzie Scott in terms of the number of people employed to give that money away, right? It's pretty, so we have vested interests, we've got, complex problems. This is not an easy fix, but I do think that philanthropists ought to at least start that journey and talk to others like you who've done it successfully and see that it's possible. But even if they just move a little bit into okay, we give no unrestricted funding this year, we're going to give 5% and commit to that and see how that goes and increase. I think it's going to be, it's got to be the move to really unlock a lot of opportunity.
And just to add, trust-based philanthropy works brilliantly if you involve the donors and involve in just showing that this is what your funding has been able to enable, right? This is the shift that has happened. So collaboration, even with the people who are donating to you, is very, very important. Everybody wants to feel good. Everybody wants to see the transformation. I think you don't need to be possessive about it. I think you need to pull people in, and the best way to pull people in is to get them involved and say, come and see, talk to the women that you are supporting, right? This relationship, we're never taught that it's networking, it's projection, it's involving people, like you would do with any business, right? So I think the sector needs to learn that, and we're learning as we move along.
I think that's a really great place to wrap things up. Thank you all. Thank you so much to our wonderful panelists, and thank you all for attending. I believe lunch is next. Please join me in thanking our panelists.